Greetings, good morning, good evening, wherever you reside in the world. I'm Andy Whittle, and you're listening to Decoding the Dreamworld. I'm very excited with this, my first ever podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. Is this world real? Have you ever thought this could be a dream within a dream? Is the world flat or round? Why is lemon kitchen cleaner made with real lemons, but lemon cheesecake made with artificial lemon? When a woman says, "Me love you long time" in Thailand, is it for real? When a woman says, "Does my bum look big in this?" is it true? These are real questions requiring answers. I have conducted research into many things over the years, like UFOs, non-physical phenomena, politics, current affairs, government cover-ups, advances in medicine, to name but a few. Decoding the Dreamworld is about the hidden world, weird stuff, interesting people, introducing you to concepts that you may not have considered before, showing you there's more to your world than what the TV or school taught you. I won't be telling you how to think or what to think, just showing you evidence for you to digest, and furthermore sharing my thoughts on the subjects. I shall be providing you with the tools to look at the information yourself. If you think I'm chatting bollocks, then that's fine too, but then nobody's perfect. I warn you, we will be going down the rabbit hole, and information can get challenging. I can only show you the door. It's up to you to walk through it. I can assure you, however, once you do, you will never want to turn back as the world and people get more intriguing. If that's left you curious, then without further ado, let's start our journey into the dream world. In this first episode, I shall be reviewing a book that I read recently that opens up the world of NDE. No, not a brand new rapper from Tottenham or a new drug available at the next Glastonbury Festival. The near-death experience. And no, I'm not referring to that moment men suffer when our lives flash past our eyes when the missus is on the warpath during an argument. We have all experienced that one. The definition of NDE is as follows. Near-death experience, NDE, was coined in 1975 in the book Life After Life by Raymond Moody, MD. Since then, many researchers have studied the circumstances, content and after effects of NDEs. The following material summarises many of their findings. An NDE is a distinct subjective experience that a minority of people report after a near-death episode. In a near-death episode, a person is either clinically dead, near death, or in a situation where death is likely or expected. These circumstances include serious illness or injury, such as from a car accident, military combat, childbirth, or suicide attempt. People in extreme conditions such as profound grief, deep meditation, or extreme physical exertion, or sometimes people just going about their normal lives, have described experiences that seem just like NDEs, near-death-like experiences, NDLEs, even though these people were not near death. Many near-death experiencers, NDEs, have said the term near-death is not correct. They are sure that they were in death, not just near death. Nevertheless, because they were not permanently, irreversibly dead, the term near death can be understood to mean actually in the first moments of death, though not permanently dead. There are two types of experiences. Pleasurable NDEs, which involve most feelings of love, joy, peace, and or bliss and distressing NDEs which involve mostly feelings of terror, horror, anger, isolation and/or guilt. Both types reported that the experience was hyper-real, even more real than earthly life. NDEs range from relatively simple, with few and/or less emotionally intense features, to relatively complex, with many and/or more emotionally intense features. 10 years ago, I first came across the story of Eben Alexander MD, an American neurosurgeon who experienced an NDE so remarkable that mainstream science can't to this day explain how it happened. The facts of how he survived, but more profoundly his journey into the afterlife. After many years I decided to find out what the fuss was about and read his book, Proof of Heaven. This is not only fascinating, but very sad also. I was taken aback by every aspect of his story, and as some of you know, I'm not one that's usually lost for words. Eben contracted E. coli meningitis, which attacked his brain and brainstem, leaving him in a coma for 7 days. His chances of survival were slim, very slim in fact, to a point where, if he woke from the coma, his doctors predicted he would be in a permanent vegetative state. Against the odds, Eben survived to tell the tale. What's interesting is he had a near-death experience and was able to recite it impeccably. He returned to a body that was heavily damaged due to the meningitis. His neocortex in the brain was non-existent whilst in coma. If he was dreaming this experience, then the neocortex would be active. It wasn't. His body was healed on return and he made a full recovery, but Eben felt different, more present. After reading Proof of Heaven and also watching a talk that Eben gave to the Theosophical Society a few years ago, I have made some notes. If you want to take notes, by all means do it. Let's go into Dr. Alexander's world with an open mind as he explains his near-death experience, his journey into the afterlife and the aftermath. The book, Proof of Heaven, has been translated into 43 different languages. It's a New York Times bestseller. The book is about Eben's experience of an NDE, or near-death experience, and the relationship between the afterlife and our 3D world. Eben has been a neurosurgeon for 20 years when he went into the coma. He carried out thousands of brain operations and was an arch skeptic of NDE and the afterlife, as the majority of doctors are. Doctors can't explain to this day how he survived what happened. Eben realised on return from his journey that we are eternal spiritual beings and there's more to this life experience than we know. He realised the potential of healing that humans possess. He realised unconditional love and what it means. He grew up in what's called reductive materialism, which basically is our current world. Many scientists around the world realise when you get into the world of consciousness, you're at one with it. Only you know your own relationship with it. Material science is what the scientists say is, but have been wrestling with quantum mechanics for ages. Experiments have shown that consciousness is primary in the existence of the universe. And I would suggest that you can only experience the universe through your own consciousness. A discussion has gone on for the past 2,600 years about the relationship between mind and body. Brain and mind will never have a full understanding of consciousness and our universe. By being conscious beings, we have access to far greater knowledge than we know. We have access to infinite, universal consciousness. Eben grew up in a scientific home. His grandfather was a general surgeon, his father a combat surgeon during the Vietnam War, and also a neuroscientist who headed the Neurosurgeon training program. Eben grew up believing science is the pathway to truth. To understand the metaphysical nature of the human body means that you understand everything there is to understand about the universe. Pure materialism in science, biology, physics and chemistry is woefully inaccurate. Science and spirituality merged are far more powerful together. Science has this knack of distancing itself from spirituality. Mainstream science says that the brain creates consciousness, birth-death paradigm. The main message that Eben learned on his journey is that we are all one. It's not just about humans. There are other sentient beings on other worlds. It is far bigger than you could possibly imagine. Eben's journey into the afterlife began on the 10th of November 2008 at 4:30 a.m. when he woke up with severe back pain. It turns out Eben was suffering meningoencephalitis or encephalomeningitis. This is a very rare inflammation of the brain and its surrounding protective membranes caused by bacteria, fungi, viruses or protozoan. It's aggressive, primitive and deadly. Eben was in a coma for 7 days. He cannot remember anything from this realm during those days. Whilst in the ICU, Eben had a lumbar puncture done. This is where a needle is inserted between two lumbar bones in the lower back to remove a sample of cerebrospinal fluid. White pus came out under pressure. Dr. Laura Potter, who was responsible for Eben, made an observation when seeing this white pus that Eben was close to death. He was diagnosed with gram-negative bacterial meningitis. It took 3 hours to reach coma state, and by this time there's a 10% survival rate. Whilst in ICU, it was determined that Eben had spontaneous E. coli meningitis. It is believed that the odds are 1 in 10 million of contracting this. Eben's neocortex in the brain was under attack. Eben's story of his journey and return to Earth has been taken seriously because of this. It is well known that general hospital nurses, hospice nurses and ICU nurses see things when people leave this world. Death and near-death experience. There was nothing left of Eben's neocortex. The brainstem was heavily damaged right from the beginning. One message that Eben wants you to know is that mainstream science doesn't acknowledge consciousness surviving death, hence why there's so much skepticism of NDE. Doctors follow materialistic science and find it difficult to see past their training and beliefs. Eben used to believe that a soul couldn't survive death of the body. He spent 8 years as an agnostic before his coma. He visited Israel for work purposes and stumbled on the Wailing Wall. It turns out that Eben may have contracted something whilst on his trip. A KPC gene was identified in a dead patient in 1996 in North Carolina, USA. The gene has complete antibiotic resistance in bacterium. It resurfaced in 2000 in New York, then Paris in 2001. By isolating it in the dead body, they thought it couldn't be transported around the world. The gene moved into bacterium and moved out into the world. This gene has the potential of making the Black Plague look like nothing. This could cause a potential problem globally, as it takes 10 years to make new antibiotics. The bacterium was present at the Tel Aviv hospital Eben was working at. Maybe he brought it back? During the coma, Eben didn't respond to antibiotics, leaving doctors worried he may have the gene. After a while, though, it was determined that Eben didn't have the deadly E. coli meningitis present in the Tel Aviv hospital, as first thought. By the end of the week, it was determined that Eben had a 2% chance of survival, and best case scenario was if he woke up from coma, he would have a month to readjust and then be transferred to a care home in a permanent vegetative state. Very serious stuff. They stopped giving Eben antibiotics and he started to come back into this world a few hours later. On his return, Eben's brain was wrecked. No speech, no recollection of family around the bedside. However, he remembered the journey he had just been on. He couldn't remember the life of Eben Alexander pre-coma. Eben had no memory of time. His journey felt like aeons, but was fit into 7 Earth days. And he had no memory of life on Earth. So we're going to go into his actual journey now and what he saw. He started off in this earthworm view. Brown mud-like walls and strange blood vessel-like structures with this loud noise beating down like an anvil. Slowly spinning white light with white and gold bits protruding out, a bit like contrails in the sky, slowly moving towards Eben. There was a perfect musical melody, absolutely beautiful. The white light opened up with a rip in the fabric of existence, which revealed a wondrous valley. Greenery everywhere, fertile, and Eben had no physical body moving into this valley. In this 3D realm we live in, butterflies and other things visit us, and they are sent by long-departed souls to give us a message. And that's well known in spiritual circles too. And I've had experiences of that in the past too. Eben was a speck of awareness on a wing of a butterfly. There were millions of them circling in a beautiful circle of love. Colours present that were beyond the rainbow. Hundreds of souls dancing, dressed in peasant clothes with pretty colours at a wonderful festival. White orbs of light circling in the sky, leaving white and gold trails, as before. There were waves and crescendos of beautiful music being sent out. Eben felt the Gateway Valley was more real than this world we live in. He now considers this 3D world less real than the one he went on in the journey. You don't see with eyes or hear with ears there, you become the experience. In thousands of documented NDEs, they talk about your life flashing before you. We go through more powerful reruns of soul lessons that the event experienced on Earth. Our higher self does the judging. We have to feel the power of decisions we have made on fellow beings. We have to feel things more sharply in our life review. Feelings are felt more in the gateway than in this realm. The point of this realm is unconditional love. We are here in Soul School to learn lessons of that love. Unconditional love has the infinite power to heal. The hardships and difficulties of life, even injuries and illness, are the opportunities of growth for your soul. We are here as members of soul groups to do this growing. Soulmates are not just lovers, but also arch enemies that are here to help your soul grow. The love heals the individual, soul group, humanity, consciousness in the universe. there are many sentient beings elsewhere. The best part of the valley was that Eben wasn't alone. There was a beautiful girl who looked at him with a loving smile. Any love that you could possibly imagine on this planet is transcended by unconditional love. People who have had NDE and briefly experienced this love have had their lives changed forever on return. We cycle through this life again and again in terms of transcending reincarnation. The flow of time is different there than it is on Earth. How we have lived affected others' decisions we have made are all hyper-real there. Time can happen in a second or take a century. Nothing like it does on this Earth. This realm is all about soul school and learning. People worry about reincarnation wherever Eben has spoken about proof of heaven, whether it's a public talk, on the radio, or just in general. Consciousness is a direct link to the divine and healing power. We are all conduits of this. The divine comes through us to show compassion, forgiveness, mercy, and acceptance. It is all about being at one with the divine. You are deeply loved and cherished forever. Words of the girl in the valley, through her lovely smile, put into Eben's awareness. You have nothing to fear. You will be taken care of. This isn't a battle of good and evil, light and darkness. Yes, there's danger and there's plenty of evil present, but the force isn't against love. We act as channels to bring into this world this love that extinguishes the darkness and evil. You can experience darkness and evil in lower spiritual dimensions, i.e. the earthworm view on the journey. Remember, when you know you're an all-powerful spiritual being, you have nothing to fear. That is all you need to know. The girl gave another message. You can do no wrong. As long as you realise we reap what we sow, if we bring pain and suffering into others, we will feel it in a life review. Learn lessons of eternal love and plan your next journey. We are here to learn and teach those lessons in soul groups. We are eternal spiritual beings through multiple spiritual incarnations. NDE literature is present in Christianity. So when you look back at early Christianity, there's a plethora of it. Eben paid little attention as he believed consciousness is created by the brain. Arch skeptic, astrophysicist Carl Sagan admitted there was too much evidence of NDE and other things for it to be disbelieved. There are many examples of past life memory in children and evidence of reincarnation. The work of Ian Stevenson and Jim Tucker into past lives in children fully brings out evidence that reincarnation is real. The music, sound, vibration and frequency of the orbs in the sky over the valley. There was something about it that allowed our souls to transcend higher levels. The valley began to start collapsing down, and Eben emerged in the realm he called the core, an inky black filled space with unconditional love, all through eternity and infinity in higher dimensional space. A brilliant orb of light and billions of stars was present, a power far beyond description. The orb that Eben calls a deity has no gender. Everything seen by Eben suddenly collapsed down in higher dimensional space-time as he approached the orb, and he was told, not in spoken word, but in conceptual flow, that you are here to stay for a while. We'll teach you many things, but you will be going back. We all possess the most profound link to the divine. Another message that Eben learnt: you don't need NDE to discover this. Meditation and prayer is enough. In the midst of core lessons in the realm, Eben popped back to earthworm view. The pulsing sound returned. Eben realised this was a tour of the spiritual realm. As soon as he remembered the musical notes, melody, the orb of light came back, ripping through the fabric again and revealing the valley once more. Eben was on the butterfly wing again, the same pattern of events occurring, with the beautiful girl and the orbs in the sky. The melody creates a portal as everything collapses around you as the ascent occurs. Remembering these melody notes took you back to the valley realm and the angelic choir back to the core. There came a time where melody notes didn't work anymore. Eben knew now he could trust and do no wrong, infinitely loved by the all-powerful deity. Eben brought back the sound of the core, eternal resonance. The word God in this realm is too puny to use to describe this deity. Eben calls the deity Om. Thousands of beings with candles and energy coming up, giving an all-loving feeling experienced in the valley. The power of prayer can bring the power into the 3D realm. Doctors can't or won't explain how Eben had completely recovered 3 months after the coma. A book by author Anita Morjani called Dying to Be Me explains how when she had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer of the lymph nodes, she should have died. But she had a profound NDE. When she came back to Earth, her cancer had disappeared. We can manifest physical healing in this realm. Eben remembers 6 faces during his experience, and they are very important. One of them was his wife. Another, his wife's best friend Sylvia. Her sister Peggy. Scott Wade, Eben's doctor. Susan Raintes, and Bond, his son. Journey that Eben had felt like months, however it fit into 7 days. The meningitis was a gift, as he believed the journey was a thought process in reaction to drugs in his body, hallucination. It wasn't. The journey occurred out of the physical brain and the physical universe. There is a deeper truth to this, as per NDE's spiritual teachings and other evidence from thousands of years, all mentioning the same thing. Another book Eben had read is the following, Third Eye Open by Susan Rainches, as mentioned before. Susan is a family friend and was told by family members of Eben's plight, to which she tried to channel him on the other side on nights 4 and 5 of the coma. She didn't visit the ICU where Eben lay and was over 150 miles away at her home. She turned out to be, as stated before, one of the 6 faces Eben remembered when awakening from the coma. So therefore somehow she's communicated to him on the other side. Eben was fearless on his journey. He had no attachment that we have on Earth whilst he was on the other side. A face did catch Eben's attention. It was his 10-year-old son Bond. He had been at the hospital and overheard the conversations the doctors and family had in regards to withdrawing antibiotics and how Eben could be if he woke from coma. Bond went to the room, pulled open his eyelids and spoke to him. Dad, you're going to be okay. This reached Eben in the other realm, and he knew he had to come back. He did struggle to get back, however. He found it very difficult. Eben's brain was wrecked, as mentioned before. All he could remember was the journey he had been on. Words and language came back quickly. His childhood memory came back after a week. He found it very difficult to sleep. All knowledge learned by Eben there was stored immediately in memory. The journey was real because the damage done to his neocortex in the brain could not handle dream-like states, confirmed by other neurosurgeons, so they know what they're talking about. Eben went through all the possible causes that he and his fellow neuroscientists would ask in order to find a solution. So there was things like hallucinations from the drugs that were put into his body, a DMT dump, natural occurring serotonin that causes hallucinations. Isolated preservation of cortical regions might have explained the experience, but unlikely given the severity of the meningitis. A reboot phenomenon, random dump of bizarre disjointed memories due to old memories in the damaged neocortex, which may happen after restarting the cortex, after being in coma-like state. These are just some of the things that they summarised afterwards. Doctors will tell you that when people are in coma, the body is there, but there's a strange physical sensation that the person is missing, meaning they're on the NDE journey. When someone is merely sleeping, you can feel and observe someone is there in the physical body. His 20 plus years of neuroscience expertise came back to him 8 weeks later. As each week went by after the coma, memories of 8 weeks prior would be more vivid in his mind than they were pre-coma. There was a full destruction of the brain, neocortex, 8 lobes of the brain seen in various brain scans. The journey is not brain-based phenomenon. His doctors told him to forget the journey as it was a trick of the dying brain. Material science at work. A consciousness is at the core of everything. Eben has revisited the realms of his journey with meditation. You have to commit to it in order to get the best results. The entire universe is a hologram, and so is the brain. The clues are deep within us. No neuroscientist can deliver the one sentence in how the physical brain might create consciousness. The brain is essentially a filter, and there is a filter theory in discussion out there. Eben quotes the great scientist, Serbian-American scientist Nikola Tesla. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in the other centuries of existence. He was referring to mind and consciousness. His oldest son, Eben IV, realised that his father was now more present. He thought that his dad had a light shining within, what Eben learned whilst on the journey. Eben was shocked by thousands of reports of NDE out there that corroborate his journey in the afterlife. Ever since a way was developed in the 1960s of rescuing people during cardiac arrest, NDE reports have gone through the roof. Visiting this realm changes lives. Vivid memories remain clearly when you return. These are not hallucinations due to drug effects or brain tricks. It is all real. Eben was amnesic of his life before the coma. Eben's dad was nowhere to be found in his recollections after the coma. He passed away 4 years before Eben slipped into his coma. The deep mystery of the butterfly and the beautiful girl became all apparent later. Eben's journey validates all the other NDEs reported. But who was this girl? 4 months after his coma, Eben found out that he was adopted from birth. He found out before that, but it was all confirmed properly after. He often wondered about his birth mother and father who couldn't keep him due to circumstances. Eben was adopted into a loving family and he forgot about the past and let it go. He often wondered if his birth mother still really cared for him and wanted to get in contact with him through the children's home. Due to the laws in North Carolina, Eben found it hard to retrieve information. His son came home from school with a project in 2000 on genealogy. He wanted to learn more about his father's birth family, not as much about the adoptive family. He even wrote a series of letters to the children's home. He found out that his birth parents had actually married, which he divulged with a social worker handling the case. He found out that his birth parents had 3 children. The youngest sister died in 1998. But it turns out that the girl on the journey was his sister. He was sent a picture of the girl, his sister, and they look alike. It was his sister. And finally, we are one soul, we are one consciousness. Conclusions and reflections. This experience is the best that I have heard to date that explains the NDE process, but also leaves mainstream science baffled and scratching heads. The book itself is a fascinating read. I didn't want to put it down. It's quite sad to read also when you learn that Eben was adopted, and he gives an account of what his birth mother went through giving him up for adoption, the draconian laws of North Carolina in the 1950s. To some, the book would be hard to understand, as he gives a detailed account about his plight in the hospital, his family keeping vigil round the bed for the 7 days in coma, not knowing if he would ever wake up. I found it harrowing, particularly when the doctors found his neocortex in the brain and brainstem were so badly damaged. The sheer joy of the family when he surprisingly woke up from the coma, but they weren't sure if he would be brain damaged. Even Eben's detailed description of the afterlife and what he experienced there is amazing. After reviewing the book and talk, I have compiled some key points that I feel raise questions around life and what it's really about. We are eternal spiritual beings that change form when the human body dies. We are currently having a human experience, and it is beyond concept what experiences and other dimensions await us after this one. Unconditional love is the real truth. I read a book many years ago called Infinite Love is the Only Truth, Everything Else is Illusion by David Icke. There you can see a correlation because both of them are speaking about the same thing. Things like anger, hate, racial and sexual abuse, anything harmful is just an illusion compared to love being the ultimate truth that binds all living things together. Material science says what is, but doesn't consider other possibilities. Science is nothing without prediction, but questions must always be asked and proved. Everything has to be considered before you make a judgment. Science is not the pathway to truth. It's there to research and test theories and hypotheses, but not one will ever know the ultimate truth of the universe and how it all works. Nikola Tesla, the great American-Serbian scientist, said, "If you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency and vibration." I would suggest in that order too. We are all one as a species and one universal consciousness that is far bigger than can be imagined. The idea is that all of us are points of attention, the universe experiencing itself in human form. Eben said that he learned on his journey there are the sentient beings in the universe. We hold the power to heal ourselves, as seen with the placebo effect. Eben healed his neocortex and brainstem on return from the journey. Others have experienced the same process, like Anita Morjani with her non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, as mentioned in her book Dying to Be Me. Mainstream science can't explain with its body of research how Eben survived the E. coli meningitis, but more remarkably returned from the coma when his neocortex and brainstem were so damaged. It can't explain the healing process or Eben's journey with modern science. Eben's experience felt more real than life itself. This has been reported in other cases. The 3D life that we live felt fake compared to where Eben went on his journey. On the other side, we go through a life review and feel the experience and how others felt during that experience. This falls into the reincarnation model, that we come back to re-experience things we didn't learn in a previous life. Life is a soul school for our souls to learn and grow before we transcend to the next level. This again forms part of the spiritual viewpoint in terms of the young soul, old soul paradigm. Some of us feel we have been here before and are considered old souls empaths. People value their lives more on return from NDE. They understand themselves better, feel more alive and present. The human mind changes on return. According to NDE cases, memories are more clear, the brain operates differently, more aware than before the NDE. We are one soul, one consciousness, but it is all connected. Every living thing is connected. As you can see, there is a lot to consider, and I don't want to overwhelm you. I'm not religious myself, but I've heard and read about some of the spiritual concepts before. None of the things that Eben has said come as a surprise to me. Oh, here we go. I'm fueling the fire. That Whittle is mad. Known it for years. Always got something weird to say. He needs sectioning. Believe me, you haven't heard nothing yet. NDE has been around for thousands of years, been documented as far back as ancient Greece. NDE skyrocketed in reports during the 1960s when a new technique was developed to keep people alive after a cardiac arrest. Now that more people were surviving, more and more NDE was reported. From the evidence gathered, it appears that mainstream science wants to keep humanity locked within this 3D 5 sense realm. There seems to be a reluctance to see past training and the parameters of science. As Eben Alexander alluded to, it doesn't acknowledge consciousness survives death and finds it difficult to see past training and beliefs. It tries to distance itself from spirituality. For instance, Bill Nye, the science communicator in the USA, has said in publications and videos that consciousness dies when the brain dies. Another is Professor Brian Cox, who has said in many videos on the web that there is no apparent justification for the human soul. In a study entitled Almost 40 Years Investigating Near-Death Experience, an overview of mainstream science journals, it was shown that the main area of study is phenomenology, but very little in mental health, spirituality and transcendence, consciousness and the mind-brain relationship. It has begun to take shape right up to the 2014 when this study was conducted, but not what is needed. It was suggested that study is needed in all areas as mentioned, and the formation of explanatory hypotheses plus collection of empirical evidence to test hypotheses are required. Eben's experience itself was subject to its own study entitled Full Neurological Recovery from Escherichia coli, E. coli, meningitis associated with near-death experience. This appeared in the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease, Volume 206, Number 9, September 2018, 10 years after the event. The study explained in detail Eben's coma, and his key data from blood tests to the different antibiotics that were administered. He had a score of 11 on the Glasgow coma scale, which is quite bad. On the NDE scale developed to measure near-death experience, Eben's score was 29 to 32, which indicates he was in the top 2% of NDE activity. It was keen to point out that those that suffer gram-negative bacterial meningitis have high rates of neurological complications after the coma. Eben completely recovered after 2 months. Meningoencephalitis severely damages the neocortex, yet Eben's completely recovered with no impairments. The study's conclusion is as follows. Patients who appear to be comatose and unresponsive to the environment may nonetheless retrospectively report complex cognitive processes during the period of coma. EEGs and other functional neuroimaging, which may appear superfluous for clinical decision-making, may be helpful in providing clarity regarding neural processes associated with complex cognitive processes during apparent coma. The association of unexpected neurological recovery with a near-death experience suggests the need for further research into mechanisms by which such experiences may contribute to a survival in critical illness. So, in other words, we cannot dismiss NDE as just a psychological creation, but it requires further analysis. As Nikola Tesla said, mainstream science thinks deeply, but doesn't think clearly. There are many scientists in the mainstream, however, that are going above and beyond to understand not only NDE, but OBE, out-of-body experience, and reincarnation, the idea that our souls come back to life as somebody else. So this isn't a hit piece on the mainstream, but an assessment of what is going on. Empirical data is one of the main points of understanding something could be true, and the mainstream tends to forget about this to back up its claims. Are you still with me? Not falling asleep? I hope I've been clear with you and you can understand it. Moving on. Here is a clear collation of evidence by a doctor on the NDE subject. Dr. Sam Parnia, Director of Critical Care and Resuscitation, Research Division of Pulmonary Critical Care and Sleep Medicine at New York University Langone Medical Center, has experience of NDE cases in which patients describe their experiences. They experience new sensations and thoughts which had not been known to them. Many people describe a feeling of being enlightened and even extreme levels of empathy. They often relive moments of regret or pleasure they have endured in their lifetimes and come away feeling as if they know themselves better. People report a unique cognitive experience in relation to death. They have a perception of seeing their body and the doctors and nurses trying to revive them, yet feel very peaceful while observing. Some report a realization that they have actually died. Later, they develop a perception or a sensation of being pulled towards a type of destination. During the experience, they review their life from birth until death, and interestingly, this review is based upon their humanity. Their perspective is focused on their humanity. They notice incidents when they lacked dignity, acted inappropriately towards others, or conversely, acted with humanity and kindness. They re-experience and relive these moments, but also, what's fascinating, which sort of blows me away because I can't really explain it, is that they also describe these experiences from the other person's perspective. If they cause pain, they experience the same pain that the other person felt, even if they didn't realise it at the time. They actually judge themselves. They suddenly realise why their actions were good or bad, and many claim to see the downstream consequences of their actions. Look at the correlation between Eben Alexander's experience and Dr. Parnia's comments. It appears that many people have shared the same experience, with a life review dominant in these cases. This opens up the question, if reincarnation is true, then after this life review, do we choose to reincarnate as somebody else to learn the lessons we found in a previous life? Or is it a natural process where we come back to learn from our mistakes before our soul can transcend to the next level? This, in my opinion, is a fantastic subject. It leads into all these other fascinating areas that are unbeknown, undiscovered and untouched. It reiterates that the collective human species still haven't scratched the surface in what there is to know. However, the main body of research, mainstream science, is split in regards to what it believes is true. In my opinion, the main body should have an open mind until they are absolutely sure that the brain creates consciousness, and not to dismiss research into unexplained phenomena. Some real study is required into consciousness and its relationship with the brain. Is it a receiver for our consciousness, like a radio is to the different frequency bands? It would seem so. Nassim Haramein, the American-Iranian physicist, said, "Looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking inside a radio for the announcer." Eben had beliefs, and then experience changed his mind. Experience is very important, as nobody can take this away from you once it's happened to you. What do I think? Well, first off, the word belief has lie within it. The word knowledge has the word know in it. I have been somebody who doesn't believe firsthand but wants to see and test the evidence before starting to contemplate something, if it's true or not. Don't get me wrong, I have been naive in the past and had my fingers burnt more than once. But why would you want to believe something before you know the facts? Surely, if it's proved later to be a lot different to your belief, this will cause you more harm down the line. After all, belief is the enemy of knowledge. As Stephen Hawking remarked, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. There is only one version of the truth. Everything else is opinion, split into informed and ill-informed opinion. This is why empirical evidence is required to show the possibility that something is true. It reminds me of what Arthur Conan Doyle wrote in his Sherlock Holmes books. When you remove the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, has to be the truth. Whether it was written in a piece of fiction or not, that statement rings true today. I've come to the conclusion that either this is real and science hasn't rubber stamped it yet, or there's an unbeknown branch of science at work that we haven't identified yet. The evidence will get stronger and stronger as the years go on, until the science or the near-death experience is realised. What are your thoughts? Is there validity to research more? Your thoughts are your thoughts. Your intellectual property is yours and yours only. No two people think the same on the planet. What you choose to believe is down to you, and long may that continue. In my view, however, opening your mind to wonder vastly improves knowledge of this world and universe than belief. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast. I hope you have taken something from it. If you want to read Proof of Heaven, it's available on Amazon, Waterstones and other good bookshops. I hope you're here for episode 2. Take care and stay healthy. Ta-ta for now.